Good morning. It's good to be with you on this Monday morning as we continue together in our time in Judges. It's great to be back in our normal pattern after a few busy weeks, but we're buckling in for the next little bit. We're at it, guys. Summer's here, but hey, there's summer. We have routines in the summer too, don't we? So it's good to be with you. We are going to read. I did a little bit of extra reading on today's passage because there were just some things I didn't quite understand that I really wanted to dig into because this passage has it's the story of Samson's hair, and you've no doubt heard this story before, probably familiar with it, but I wanted to kind of unpack it a little bit for my own satisfaction, to make sure it was making sense to me. So let's because if it doesn't make sense to me, it's kind of hard for me to explain it to you. So let's read. We're going to read chapter 16, 1 through 22. And you've heard the story before, but pay attention to it like you hadn't heard it before. And you may not have heard the whole story. You may just be familiar with the broad outlines. So there may be some new stuff in here today. So let's read chapter 16, 1 through 22. When Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute and went into her, the Gazites were told Samson has come here. So they circled around and lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. They kept quiet all night, thinking, "Let us wait until the morning, light of morning, and we will kill him." But Samson lay only until midnight. Then at midnight he rose up, took hold of the doors of the city gate and the two posts, and pulled them, bar and all, to put them up on his shoulders, and carry them out to the top of the hill in front of Hebron. After this, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The lords of the Philistines came to her and told her and said to her, "Coax him and find out what makes his strength so great, and how we may overpower him, so that we may bind him in order to subdue him. And we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me what makes your strength so great. How could you be, and how you could be bound so that one could subdue you?" Samson said to her, "If you bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that are not dried out, then I shall become weak like anyone else." Then the lords of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not dried out, and she bound him with them. While men were lying in wait at the inner chamber, she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he snapped the bowstrings as a strand of fiber snaps when it touches the fire. So the secret of his strength was not known. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you could be bound." He said to her, "If you bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like anyone else." So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them, and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." The men lying in wait were in the inner chamber. But he snapped the ropes off his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you could be bound." He said to her, "If you weave the 7 locks of my head with the web and make it tight with a pin, then I shall become weak like anyone else." So while he slept, Delilah took 7 locks of his head and wove them into the web and made them tight with a pin. Then she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he awoke from his sleep and pulled away the pin and the loom and the web. Then she said to him, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked three times now and not told me what makes your strength so great." Finally, after she had nagged him with her words day after day and pestered him, he was tired to death. So he told her the whole secret. He said to her, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite from God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaven, then my strength would leave me, and I would become weak and be like anyone else." Then Delilah realized that he had told her his whole secret, and she sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, "This time come up, for he has told me his whole secret." The lords of the Philistines came to her and brought the money in their hands. She let him fall asleep on her lap, and he called a man and had him shave the 7 locks of his head. He began to weaken, and strength left him. Then she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." When he awoke from his sleep, he thought, "I will go out as the other times and shake myself free." But he did not know the Lord had left him. So the Philistines seized and gorged out his eyes. They brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles. And he ground at the mill in the prison. But the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. So it was this whole business of the hair. What's going on with the hair? Um, Broad outline story. We see once again our boy. He's just out of control, it seems like, doesn't it? In fact, I was reading some commentaries, and one of the Jewish rabbis taught on Samson and said the reason why his eyes were gorged out by the Philistines is because it was always his eyes that led him into trouble. He was always following his lust. He was always following the pleasures, and so that was why his eyes were gorged out, which I think makes sense symbolically. But we see him sleeping with a prostitute. We see him just messing with Delilah, and she, of course, what an odd relationship they've got here, huh, guys? I mean, think about that. She says, "Hey, tell me how how we can take your strength from you." And the first time she tries it, he thinks after would realize, um, she's trying to get me. Maybe this relationship's not going to work out. She's trying to get me. Do you see here with Samson, once again, the arrogance? He's just toying with people and messing with them. And he thinks he's bulletproof. I mean, because of his great strength, he thinks he's bulletproof. What's the proverb say? Is the pride goeth before the fall? Um, he has this connection with God because of the Nazarene vow. Um, and number six unpacks more about the Nazarene vow. And we see the Nazarene vow is to avoid wine, avoid the grapes, anything from the vine, avoid corpses. So remember the story earlier about him with the lion, him sticking his hand at the corpse? I mean, he'd broken that part of the vow. And of course, no razor upon his head, because that razor was the symbol of the dedication. It's that symbolic thing. It's kind of like, in a wedding, I'll take these bands and say they were an outward invisible sign of an inward spiritual grace. And I know myself every morning before I leave the house, I don't sleep with my ring on because I don't. But I always make sure it's always weird if I ever leave the house without my ring on. I just feel weird because it's such to me a powerful symbol of my love for Holly and our wedding vows. Um, the hair was symbolic of the consecration that he had with God, how he was consecrated to God, and the hair represented his presence. And so there's something symbolically powerful about Samson knowing that where his strength came from. And that's why, of all the things that can sometimes annoy me about Samson, I think he took too lightly almost that connection with God he had because of the vow that his parents had made, and because of the vow that he himself had kept. Yes, his parents had made him a Nazarite, but he kept the vow. In fact, you notice how the reason Delilah knew he was telling the truth is because he invoked God, because he took that seriously, but not so seriously. He took it for granted and he took it seriously. And I think for us, um, some of us have all manner of hair, don't we? Some of us have gray hair like me. Others have long flowing locks. Whatever you have, you have your hair. But all of us who are Christian have something else. That's our baptism. No matter what tradition you come from, whether it's a United Methodist tradition or a Wesleyan tradition where your baptism is kind of tied to the covenant and tied to the notion of circumcision in some ways, whether it's more of a Baptist tradition or a non-denominational tradition, which tied more to a profession of faith. No matter where you find yourself in your understanding of baptism, that baptism is a constant reminder of our connection with God. And we never need to forget that. One of the most powerful things I think we can do in our life is remember our baptism. If you can remember the act if you were baptized later in life, you can remember it, that's important. But even if you can't remember, if you were baptized as an infant and you can't remember it, you can go through rituals. So every so often in St. Matthew's, we have we have a renewal of our baptismal covenant. We'll remember our baptisms. We'll touch the water and we'll feel it, we'll experience it. And don't take that connection with God for granted. Don't take the marking of God upon your life for granted. Don't forget that God has called you as his very own and that you are his and that you have been marked. As I have a wedding band on my hand as a married man, as I have an ordination certificate around here with my for my ordination, that consecration, as a Christian, you have been consecrated. In the same way Samson was consecrated as a Nazarite, and his strength flowed from that consecration and from that vow to God, that's where our strength comes from. It doesn't come from our ability or our intelligence or our morality or any of these things, but our strength comes from God and that marking of God upon us. Don't take it for granted and don't forget it. Remember your baptism. The same way that Samson's strength flowed from that vow and that hair, friends, our strength flows from God's marking upon us, His grace upon us through His call, through our salvation, and through our sanctification. Remember your covenant. Remember your baptism and know where your strength comes from. Hey, remember who you are. Remember who called you. Remember who saved you. Have a great rest of your day. Tomorrow we're going to read about what happens to our boy Samson in the end. So, hey, have a great day. See you tomorrow.